Born on the 1st of September 1966, Anatoly Yuryevich Moskvin, a former Russian linguist, philologist, and historian, was arrested in 2011 after police discovered mummified bodies of 26 girls and women between the ages of 3 and 29 in his home in Nizhny Novgorod. Moskvin frequented cemeteries where he would exhume the bodies, mummify them himself, and then dress them and place them in his bedroom and around his home. Moskvin lived with his parents and they knew about the mummies, but they thought these were extra-large dolls. Anatoly Moskvin was born in the Soviet city of Gorky, now known as Nizhny Novgorod. As a schoolboy, he began frequenting cemeteries with his friends, especially the Krasnaya Etna cemetery in the Leninsky district. He said that an experience he had as a young boy had piqued his interest in the dead. When he was young, he attended a funeral for an 11-year-old girl. With the casket open, Moskvin was told to kiss the dead girl's face. He said that one of the adults pushed his face to the dead girl, and he had no choice but to kiss the wax-like forehead of the corpse. After graduating from the Faculty of Linguistics of Moscow State University, Moskvin became widely known in his academic circles. His main academic interests were Celtic history, folklore, and linguistics. Moskvin had a keen interest in cemeteries, funerals, death, and mysticism. He maintained a personal library containing over 60,000 books and documents, as well as a huge doll collection. As an adult, he led a very secluded life. He never married or dated and preferred to live with his parents. He never used alcohol or smoked tobacco, and some believed him to have been a virgin. In 2016, it was reported that Moskvin had planned on marrying a 25-year-old lady from his hometown. This woman was later present at his trial. Moskvin, who called himself a cemeterist, was considered an expert on local cemeteries in the Nizhny Novgorod region. In 2005, a researcher and publisher instructed Moskvin to summarize and compile a list of people who died and were buried in more than 700 cemeteries in 40 districts of the Nizhny Novgorod region. Moskvin claimed that over the next 2 years, he visited 752 cemeteries across the region and that he walked up to 30 kilometers, 18.6 miles, a day. During his travels, he drank water from puddles. He slept in haystacks on abandoned farms, slept in the cemeteries themselves, and even slept in a coffin being prepared for burial. During his extensive travels, Moskvin was occasionally questioned by police on suspicion of vandalism and theft, but he was not arrested or detained after revealing his academic background and goals. After his arrest, Yesin said that a mistake was made and was confident Moskvin's name would be cleared. Yesin later told the Associated Press that Moskvin was a loner who had a certain eccentricity, but showed no signs of doing anything unusual. In 2008, Moskvin wrote an extensive series of articles on the history of Nizhny Novgorod cemeteries that appeared in the paper. On the 2nd of November 2011, Moskvin was arrested by police who were investigating a spate of grave vandalism in cemeteries in and around Nizhny Novgorod. When investigators searched Moskvin's home, they found 26 bodies around his home and in his garage. In a video released by police, the mummified bodies were found seated on shelves and sofas in rooms full of books, papers, and general clutter. Even though investigators found only 26 bodies in his home, he was accused of vandalizing up to 150 graves. Items such as metal plaques removed from headstones were also found. Police found instructions for making dolls, maps of local cemeteries, and a collection of photos and videos showing open graves and bodies being exhumed, but none of this evidence could be conclusively linked to the bodies found in Moskvin's home. In an interview after his arrest, Moskvin said he had great sympathy for dead children and that he believed they could be brought back to life through science or black magic. Moskvin, an expert in Celtic culture, learned that ancient druids slept on the graves so that they can communicate with the spirits of the dead. He also studied the culture of the Siberian people, especially the ancient Yakuts, and discovered that they had a similar practice of communicating with their dead. He then began researching obituaries of children who had recently died, and when he found an obituary that he claims spoke to him, he would sleep on the child's grave to see if the spirit wanted to come back to life. Moskvin said he had been doing this for approximately 20 years, and that when he started this practice, he never dug a grave without the permission of the child inside. Then as he got older, he found that, and sleeping on the grave became physically painful, so he started digging up the corpses and taking them home so that he could sleep close to them. He hoped that spirits would be more willing to talk in a safe and welcoming home, and that they would be more easily heard once they were no longer underground. After exhuming the body, Moskvin studied mummification theories and methods to preserve the body. He dried the bodies with a mixture of salt and baking soda, and then hid them in a safe dry place in or around the cemetery. After the corpses were dried, Moskvin took them home and created dolls using different methods to provide functional bodies for his children to use. He finally found a way to bring them back to life through feeling. Their physical remains were too decayed and deformed to feel comfortable or happy. Unable to prevent their bodies from withering and shriveling as they dried, he wrapped their limbs with strips of cloth and stuffed their body cavities with rags and stuffing to keep them full. Sometimes he added a wax mask decorated with nail polish to their faces before dressing them, bright children's clothes and wigs. These details made the body look like a large handmade doll, making its discovery impossible. It is unclear whether each doll contained a complete set of human remains. Moskvin said he knew he was committing a crime, but he felt that the dead children were crying for salvation, and he firmly believed that saving the children was more important than upholding the law. Moskvin never had children, and his desire to have a daughter motivated him to continue bringing the dead girls to life. Moskvin often regretted that he had no children, and once tried to adopt a girl against her parents' wishes, but his application was rejected due to his low income. He also denied any sexual attraction to his dolls and regarded them as his own children. He talked and communicated with the corpses, sang songs, watched cartoons together, and even organized his birthday and celebrated holidays with them. According to investigators, the bodies mainly came from cemeteries in the Nizhny Novgorod region, but they suspect that some may have arrived from Moscow as well. Moskvin fully cooperated with the investigation, saying he had been making dolls for the past 10 years. His parents traveled a lot and were unaware of his activities. Moskvin was charged with desecrating the graves and bodies of the dead under Article 244 of the Criminal Code. This carries a penalty of up to 5 years in prison. Moskvin was also initially charged with desecrating a Muslim grave, which was considered a hate crime, but those charges were later dismissed. Psychiatric tests revealed that Moskvin suffered from a form of paranoid schizophrenia. On the 25th of May 2012, at a hearing held, the Leninsky District Court in Nizhny Novgorod declared Moskvin incompetent to stand trial and exempted him from criminal liability. Instead, he was sentenced to mandatory medical treatment. Prosecutors said they were satisfied with the verdict and did not appeal the decision. Moskvin was transferred to a psychiatric clinic and his stay was regularly reviewed. At a hearing in February 2013, an extension of his treatment was granted, and then again in April 2014 and July 2015. In September 2018, Moskvin's doctors declared he was no longer dangerous and asked the court to release him for outpatient treatment at home. But a follow-up psychiatric examination in February 2019 found it was too early to release him, and the hospital withdrew its request.